This program contains graphic violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Child's Play, the 1988 horror film that makes the killer doll Chucky into a household name.
No one ever really wants to play when they say, "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?"
But when the scariest Chucky reference takes the movie off the big screen and brings it straight into real life.
Suzanne was forced to listen to the same phrase over and over and over again. "Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?"
Evil gets a new face.
In torturing Suzanne, she came to believe that she was the personification of Chucky.
But like the Child's Play franchise, just when you think it's all about to end, there's one more surprise at the end.
They thought it was over and they thought no one would ever find out what happened to Suzanne. But they were dead wrong.
It's a copycat crime that rivals any horror film.
This was revenge at all costs, even if it meant the worst death you could imagine.
In 1988, the horror film Child's Play introduces a new type of villain that terrifies audiences like never before. The antagonist is a serial killer doll, known simply as Chucky.
The first Child's Play began with a killer who is in a shootout with the police. He gets shot, and before he dies, he transfers his soul into a doll, which ends up in the possession of a little boy on his 6th birthday.
The Child's Play film franchise gets 5 more installments over a 25-year span.
From a film critic point of view, this movie was very popular. Made a lot of money for its time, so they shot out a lot of sequels afterward, and those were pretty popular as well.
The most haunting moment in each Chucky film comes from the villain's signature catchphrase.
I think everybody knows the famous line from Child's Play, "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?" When you hear that line, it's not long before a murder tends to happen.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
It's the same line Suzanne Capper knows all too well.
In Chucky's voice, she'd scream it out to Suzanne. "Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?" And then she would torture her.
They make a 45-minute loop of this, and they play this for Suzanne as they're torturing her.
Don't you want to play? 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 Don't you want to play?
They were turning into the character of Chucky.
16-year-old Suzanne Capper has never had an easy life.
Suzanne grew up in a low-income section of Manchester, England. Her father wasn't in the picture, and she was raised by her mother and her stepfather.
It's the same height because we go over this at the same time.
Her mother's second marriage is far from happy.
You don't need a marriage counselor. You need a freaking babysitter the way you act.
There was a great deal of fighting, which eventually led to divorce.
You're leaving for real this time? Yeah. I only asked because commitment's never really been your strong suit, has it? Just go.
Mom, please, Mom, please.
Suzanne and her sister end up in the custody of her stepfather.
Very difficult for a child to feel secure and that she belongs when she's been rejected by her biological mother. Mother, we think of as caregiver. as we think of our nurturer. We think of our consistent support. If you're starved for love, or you're starved for attention, or you're starved to find your place in the world, and you know you don't fit in, you're going to be constantly searching for anyone who wants to kind of take you in. Anyone who shows you a sliver of attention.
That's when Suzanne meets Jean Powell, a woman who will change the course of her life forever.
Jean Powell was a 26-year-old divorcee and mother of 3, and Suzanne met Jean and became her babysitter.
How are you, sweetie? Good, how are you doing?
Jean needed someone like Suzanne to step in and assist. And for Suzanne, she may have looked at Jean and her 3 children as the potential to be her family. A family that she could love and a family that she could take care of.
I don't know what I would do without you. Of course. This is like,
No.
Suzanne used to call her mum, and she was thought that Jean was giving her the love and attention that she so craved.
We must feel that we belong, that we fit in somewhere, that someone wants us, that someone loves us.
But like Chucky in Child's Play, Jean is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
She was a very independent woman, attractive, and carried an air of being very powerful, very dominant personality.
Jean has a terrible secret.
Jean was, in fact, a drug dealer, and she was, leading the criminal underworld in that part of Manchester.
Jean's business partner is her 24-year-old neighbor, Bernadette McNeilly. A mother of 3 herself, Bernadette is described as the operation's enforcer.
People said Bernadette had a temper. That woman could really get angry. Bernadette had a dispute with some neighbor and told him, I'm going to burn down your house. So this is clearly somebody who really could go off.
These 2 mothers form a powerful criminal alliance.
I think they saw themselves as kind of, crime bosses, basically.
Interesting about Jean and Bernadette, like-minded people find each other. Both women were very manipulative. Both women were totally out for themselves, lacked remorse. They really were what people would refer to as sociopaths.
Masquerading as loving mothers, Jean and Bernadette prove that villains come in all shapes and sizes. Just like Chucky in the movie Child's Play.
You know there's something behind those blue eyes. Killer's just sitting and waiting.
oh.
Together, the 2 mothers recruit local teenagers to help expand their criminal enterprise.
They also ran a profitable car theft operation. They recruited teenagers that would do anything for them in order to retain their high.
They had a coterie of young men who would buy their drugs and steal cars for them, and these young men looked up to Jean and Bernadette.
One of those teens is 16-year-old Anthony Dudson.
Now, Anthony is a troubled teen. He doesn't work and he doesn't go to school. Jean and Bernadette take a liking to him, and they both form a sexual relationship with him.
He was going to bed with both of them, and in fact, they would argue over who owned Anthony, which they called their Randy Rabbit.
But soon, Jean and Bernadette's fast-paced lifestyle catches up to them.
What the hell?
Jean, Bernadette, and Anthony realize they have contracted an STD. The two so-called crime lords are humiliated.
Even though they had numerous lovers between them, they were convinced it was Suzanne because she slept in the same bed occasionally. Suzanne was being blamed for it, even though there was no evidence that she'd given it to anyone or had it.
Suzanne is an easy target. She worships Jean and Bernadette and will never defend herself because she fears rejection.
Neither Jean nor Bernadette had any capability of being responsible for their own actions. They couldn't accept the idea that their actions brought about a disease. They had to find somebody to pin it on because they weren't capable themselves of accepting that their actions had consequences.
If anything goes wrong, Suzanne's always to blame. She was made the scapegoat of a lot of things.
They really both had sociopathic behaviors.
High on drugs and ego, Jean and Bernadette focus their attention on revenge.
I mean, she's really gotta pay.
They thought she was to blame. She embarrassed them. And they wanted her to pay with her life.
In the horror film Child's Play, an innocent-looking doll named Chucky goes on a murderous rampage.
Chucky's not a normal doll because he has the soul of a serial killer within him. So the first night that Chucky is in Andy's possession for his birthday, his babysitter has put him to bed now, and she's just kind of wandering throughout the apartment until ultimately Chucky hits her with a hammer and she ends up flying out of a window to her death.
She's the first in a long line of Chucky's victims, but she's not the only babysitter in danger. 16-year-old Suzanne Capper is being targeted by her neighbors, Jean Powell and Bernadette McNeilly. They believe she has somehow given them an STD.
There's no evidence at all that Suzanne gave an STD to these women. There's no evidence that Suzanne even had an STD to be able to give it to these women or to any of their boyfriends.
It doesn't matter to these sociopathic women.
Suzanne was a whipping boy for Jean and Bernadette. Anything that went wrong was Suzanne's fault.
One has to ask themselves why Suzanne stayed. Where was she supposed to go, though? In her mind, this was her family now. This was a young girl who didn't have a family. This was a young girl who, in essence, had been rejected by her biological mother.
Over the course of a few weeks, Jean and Bernadette make Suzanne's life a living hell.
Bernadette and Jean would accuse Suzanne of leaving the children on the street, not taking care of them, and also there was an incident where Bernadette accused her of stealing a duffel coat that she had.
Suzanne put all her energies into loving Jean and her family. And maybe this was a rough time, but in her mind, she was going to stick it out. That's all she knew. That was her coping skill, just to try harder, to work harder, and make these people love her.
They started having arguments. Suzanne was very defenseless, she was very weak, and then there was some incidents where Bernadette and Jean would physically hit Suzanne.
Finally, when Jean and Bernadette start to physically abuse Suzanne, a light bulb goes off. Once she's hit, once she's beaten, and they show no remorse, and there's no apologies, she realizes she doesn't have to take this kind of abuse.
In the end, she had enough and she left.
But Jean and Bernadette's twisted fixation continues.
Even after Suzanne leaves, she's still being blamed for everything.
In the following days, Jean and Bernadette continue to abuse drugs and become fixated on their recent troubles with Suzanne. Dreaming of revenge, they begin to plot Suzanne's demise.
Right.
They really both had sociopathic behaviors. There's a couple things that seemed to happen. Although Suzanne had left, Jean and Bernadette still continued to blame her for all the ills in their life. They just could not let go and maybe look at themselves in the mirror and saying, where do I fall in on this? Where am I accountable?
It's always Suzanne's fault. And soon, the ticking time bomb that is Jean and Bernadette explodes.
Jean and Bernadette knew that in order to torture and humiliate Suzanne, they couldn't do it themselves. They needed to get other people. And of course, who do they get? They get the individuals they're supplying drugs to that they control and have complete power over. And in many ways will do their dirty work.
Their lover, Anthony Dudson, and Jean's ex-husband, Glenn Powell, will do just about anything for the two women.
These men are on board, no question. The minute Jean and Bernadette say, we want you to help us get revenge on this girl, the men are in.
The trap is set. Now all they need is Suzanne.
Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you guys?
Well,
we've been talking.
we really miss you.
Honestly, it's not the same without you.
Yeah, we need you.
No, we can't even function. Honestly.
They tell her how much they miss her and how the house isn't the same without her.
Look, the last time we talked, we messed up. I'm sorry about that. It wasn't good. It wasn't us, and we're done with that now. It's in the past.
Well, I hope the best for you, but I don't know what you guys want. But I can't.
Wait.
Suzanne had had some distance from Jean at this point. She only wanted to recapture that mother love that actually was never there.
Suzanne, wanting so badly to be loved and wanting acceptance, you were able to convince her that they were telling the truth. And eventually, it worked, and Suzanne believed them.
Suzanne agrees to go back to Jean and Bernadette's home.
Suzanne misses Jean as a mother figure. Again, Suzanne never had that mother figure and that love in her life. So when she got it, even for a moment from Jean, she was willing to do anything to keep it.
I'm so glad you guys went to that too. That was my absolute favorite.
Mine too.
I wish it was so.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys went too. But, you know. Oh, hey!
Suzanne enters the house, and the men instantly grab her and restrain her.
Jean, what's going on?
Suzanne was shocked. She's caught off guard. She has no idea what's happening, and she had to be completely terrified.
In Child's Play, after Chucky kills the babysitter, he goes on to murder as many people as possible, all in the name of revenge.
Chucky wants to exact revenge on people from his past life, his old partner who left him, his murderer, the police officer, and also his voodoo teacher who wouldn't help him when he needed him.
Jean, what?
Now, Jean and Bernadette are getting even, Chucky style.
Do it.
Shut up. Stay down.
No!
Stay down. Shut up.
God, don't do this!
Stay still!
Stop it! Stop! Stop!
Stop moving, huh?
No.
The first act was to shave the hair off Suzanne.
Stop! 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 You guys don't have to do this.
Shut up! Shut up. Sit down.
When they all came down with the STD, the doctors had Jean and Bernadette shave their bodies. And this, they felt, was very embarrassing and also very shameful. For Suzanne, they wanted this to be a humiliating act. An eye for an eye.
Look at this mess. It's disgusting. I'm gonna go ahead and need you to go ahead and clean up your hair, okay? It's not enough. This nasty mess. It's like you tell her and she just doesn't listen. There's no brain in that head of yours. Come on!
Here's a person trying to survive, filled with anxiety, being attacked.
Come on, stay!
But the ultimate statement is, you are unloved.
Pick it up!
This was planned. There is no love in this house.
For Suzanne, the torture is far from over.
When they tired of using themselves to hurt this girl, they found a heavy wooden spoon and a heavy wooden fork and started to beat her with those implements.
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
She's just trying to stay alive and protect herself. Maybe then, once they're done kicking and hitting and beating her, then maybe they'll forgive her. And then maybe, once she's forgiven, they will love her.
Sit up! Come on, sit up!
Hours later, the beating finally stops.
There are no words to describe the despair and just the pity that you feel from knowing what Suzanne went through.
Get her up! Stand up! Come on!
Well, Suzanne, have you learned your lesson?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Yes.
I can't imagine any betrayal greater than thinking you're being embraced again. You're coming back into the fold of the family that you've chosen, that's chosen to have you come back, only to have them hurt you and torture you and lock you away, and you still don't know what's coming next.
Sweet dreams, Suzanne.
She's crying, locked in this closet all night. She's hurting emotionally, physically. And she's dealing with all of this because she trusted someone who said she loved her.
But if Suzanne thinks mourning will bring forgiveness, she's dead wrong. Their torment may be over for the night, but this game of misery is just getting started. In the horror franchise Child's Play, when it comes to the possessed doll named Chucky, no form of torture is off limits.
Chucky is very creative with his choices of murder. He will bite, stab, kick, set you on fire, blow you up. He's up for doing any and everything to kill people.
Likewise, Jean Powell and Bernadette McNeilly are torturing 16-year-old Suzanne Capper, all in the name of revenge.
Jean and Bernadette are two single mothers who have kidnapped their old friend, Suzanne. They believe that Suzanne was responsible for giving them an STD. These two women were pretty much high on drugs and just pure evil.
After hours of torment, including shaving her hair and physical beatings, Jean and Bernadette locked Suzanne in their closet for the entire night.
Suzanne's screams could be heard by the children living in the house, Jean and Bernadette's children. And because the children were upset that they could hear Suzanne's screaming and pleads, Jean and Bernadette then became more angry at Suzanne.
This behavior shows that Jean and Bernadette have tremendous problems, that they can watch another human being be so tortured and their only concern is, well, she woke our children from sleeping.
I have an idea.
What are you doing?
My apartment's empty. She can stay there. We can sleep. The kids can sleep. It's perfect, right?
Jean and Bernadette asked Glenn and Anthony for help.
Glenn and Anthony got their drugs from Jean and Bernadette, and they also had got their sex from them, and they were kind of devoted followers of the two women.
You ready?
Rise and shine.
Oh, yeah.
The group smuggles Suzanne into Bernadette's vacant house.
They get her to this vacant apartment and tie her up with whatever they could find.
Welcome.
Out of the way. Well, Suzanne, let's take this off. I want you to take a good look around. This is going to be your new bedroom. Isn't it got you a nice bed here? It's nice.
This also shows that the intention behind what they were doing was certainly not to stop or to show mercy or to let this girl go. They wanted somewhere they could continue to do whatever they wanted to her in a place where it wouldn't be overheard.
Please, I'm sorry. No.
The torment continues. And this time, Jean and Bernadette bring the horror of the movie Child's Play from the screen into real life.
At the time, there was a popular song on the radio from the Child's Play soundtrack. It contained the famous phrase, "Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?"
Chucky's here. Chucky wants to play. Don't you want to play? Don't you want to play? Don't you want to play? Don't you want to play?
They want to inflict additional psychological torture. So they make a 45-minute loop of this song, and they play this for Suzanne as they're torturing her.
Over the course of 4 days, Suzanne suffers at the hands of Jean's brutal army.
They kept her awake by giving her shots of amphetamine. They put out cigarettes on her face. They get a pair of pliers and they start pulling out her teeth.
So in order to keep Jean and Bernadette happy, the torturing had to continue and had to be better and more torturous and more abusive. They were addicted to the high of torture and that feeling of being in control.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Throughout the torture period, Bernadette recites a line from the movie Child's Play.
Don't you wanna play with me, huh? Don't you wanna be my friend?
Bernadette seemed to really like mimicking Chucky.
Oh, is this gonna feel, huh?
Please. Oh my God!
Bernadette was doing so much speed and everything, and she loved the movie Child's Play 1, that there was a point where she seemed to assume the evil puppet's character and become Chucky.
This was Bernadette embracing her actual evil nature. This was Bernadette being able to transcend her own humanity.
In Child's Play, Chucky doesn't leave his victims alive. And just as Suzanne's chance at survival seems all but lost,
Please help me.
Despite this prolonged torture,
Please, please.
Suzanne still holds out hope that somebody, somewhere, is going to hear her or is going to find her and put an end to this violence against her.
but Jean and Bernadette won't make it easy. In the horror franchise Child's Play, a possessed doll named Chucky has an insatiable appetite for murder.
Everyone that Chucky wants revenge on finds a horrible death, inventive, torturous. If Chucky wants revenge, Chucky's gonna have revenge.
In each installment of the popular horror film, no one believes Chucky is the real killer until it's too late.
It's a common idea in horror movies that things may not be what they seem.
It's the same feeling 16-year-old Suzanne Capper has after being held captive and tortured by two women she once believed were her friends.
Jean and Bernadette are single mothers and they're drug dealers, and they're really angry with Suzanne for what they think was her giving them an STD, and they want their revenge.
But now, for the first time since her torture began, a new face stands at the door.
Please.
His name is David Hill.
David Hill is someone who gets his drugs from Bernadette and Jean. David knew that these women weren't to be trifled with, but he had no idea that they were capable of something like this.
Please come here. Yes, Jean, Bernadette.
Suzanne knows David might be her last chance to escape. But David is no hero.
I'm sorry. I can't. I don't want any trouble.
David put his own drug need before helping a fellow human being, even one he saw in such a condition, clearly tortured, clearly in agony. He did nothing but think of whether or not he'd get drugs again if he tattled.
No, please, you have to help me, please.
You can only imagine what it must have done to Suzanne, seeing someone within feet that just could untie her and allow her to get free, yet does nothing and walks away.
For Suzanne, the despair is never ending Until 5 days later, when the real nightmare begins.
Suzanne's sister did call Jean's house, and she spoke to Jean. She asked where Suzanne was, and she informed her that her stepfather was going to call the police because they hadn't found her and they were looking for her and she had disappeared and they were concerned.
Jean and Bernadette are very, very scared and they don't want the police involved at any risk, so they decide they have to make sure that no one ever finds Suzanne again alive. They decide they're going to kill her.
They take a scene from the movie Child's Play to carry out the crime.
In the original Child's Play, Andy's mom tried to kill Chucky by setting him on fire.
In real life, Jean and Bernadette think that fire is the solution to their problems. All of the torture will culminate in this big flame out that will put an end to their inconvenience of having to deal with what they've done to Suzanne.
After shoving Suzanne in the car, Jean and Bernadette drive her several miles away to a wooded area.
She's completely disoriented. She's confused. She's been beaten up, she's starved, she's sleep deprived. She's close to death.
Suzanne is dressed in a coat and leggings because they're flammable, they easily burn. Bernadette douses Suzanne with gasoline to make sure that when they light her, she'll burn and she'll die. Glenn takes the lighter to Suzanne's back and flicks it. Then she ignites.
Everything you deserve.
After they set her on fire, they just leave her to burn to death.
We'll see you later. Or maybe not.
Bye-bye.
And they get in their car and they drive off and they're so happy they're actually singing a song to celebrate. They thought they'd got rid of the problem, Suzanne, and they were going to carry on with their normal lives.
But just like a hero in a horror movie, Suzanne won't go down without a fight.
Suzanne wasn't dead. She's lived through this much. Now she sure as hell is not giving up.
At the end of the movie Child's Play, Chucky is set on fire in hopes of destroying him forever.
Everyone thinks that Chucky's dead until he pops up and, surprise, he's still alive.
It's a shocking twist avid horror fans have come to expect. But real-life torturers Jean Powell, Bernadette McNeilly, Anthony Dudson, and Glenn Powell are sure they've killed 16-year-old Suzanne Capper.
This pack of wild, evil, deranged drug addicts kidnapped and tortured Suzanne for their own amusement and pleasure. They set her on fire and abandoned her in a field. They thought she'd burned to death. Suzanne was able to put out the fire and crawl to safety.
Suzanne managed to put out the fire and gallantly crawl to the nearest road for help. She was literally starved to death for a week. She must have had very little energy just from that. So, I mean, she must have been working on pure adrenaline.
Miraculously, Suzanne flags down a passing car.
Suzanne was a real fighter, and it showed just how strong and determined she was. Though she hadn't eaten for a week, she'd been tortured, she was burned over 80% of her body, she still managed to summon the courage to get help.
The Good Samaritans are able to get Suzanne to the hospital. The investigation now hangs on her survival.
Suzanne. Can you hear me, Suzanne? You know where you are? You're in the hospital, and they're taking good care of you. We just want to ask you a few questions. We're trying to understand what happened.
The amazing thing here is that despite all that she'd been through, everything that had been done to her, Suzanne was able to tell the police who were her torturers and where the torture had taken place.
Authorities waste no time. They drive straight to Jean's apartment.
All right, everybody wake up, but stay where you are.
They had no idea that Suzanne would survive. They're still wearing the clothes they burned Suzanne in. They haven't cleaned anything up.
Get your hands out where we can see them.
It never dawned on any one of these four that they might get caught.
While all four are taken in for questioning, authorities process the scene at both Jean and Bernadette's homes.
All right, we got him.
The detectives went to Bernadette's old house. They found the bedroom where she'd been tortured, and they found the bloody bat mattress, and they found the tape of the Child's Play song which had been repeatedly played to her through the headphones.
Suzanne fought to survive in that room and won. Unfortunately, on December 18th, just 4 days after her heroic escape, she slips into a coma and dies.
Suzanne eventually died because of her organs failing due to the torture and abuse that she suffered. Suzanne's death, the cruelty and brutality behind it, really deeply impacted people. It made them come together to support her family and let it be known that they loved this girl.
As for her kidnappers, justice for Suzanne comes in the form of guilty verdicts.
Glyn, Jean, and Bernadette are all sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 25 years, and Anthony Dudson got life in prison with a minimum of 15 years.
During the trial, Jean, Anthony, and Glenn claim they were all terrified of Bernadette and her obsession with the Child's Play doll, Chucky.
Bernadette possibly believed that she actually was Chucky in torturing Suzanne. She came to believe that she was the personification of Chucky. Glenn, Anthony, Jean said that they were in such fear of Bernadette that voice of Chucky had so consumed her.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Want to play?
They felt they had no choice but to continue to torture Suzanne. And based on that fear, they did.
And like any good horror franchise, Bernadette continues to fuel dramatic sequels.
Just like Chucky continues to come back when you think he's dead and gone forever. Bernadette McNeilly seems to have 9 lives.
In December of 2014, after 21 years behind bars, Bernadette is labeled a model prisoner and set free.
She's now out there free, living under another name. Hopefully this sequel with Bernadette won't play out the same way as the Child's Play sequel with Chucky.